Could you be frozen after death and reanimated in the future? If you had the chance to be frozen after death and wake up in an age where medicine had progressed so much that you could survive the freeze, would you take it? If so, do you know enough about cryogenics to make an informed decision about whether or not it's right for you? Here are some of the facts and things about cryogenics of humans that will help you decide if this exciting process might be for you. Cryonics is the practice of freezing people who have died in the hopes that they can be revived and cured in the future. The science behind cryonics is still developing, but some believe that it could one day be possible to bring people back to life. If you're interested in cryonics, there are a few things you should know. First, it's important to realize that cryonics is not currently reversible. Once someone is frozen, there is no way to bring them back to life. There is also no guarantee that this will work because the science behind cryonics is still developing. There are costs associated with this process which range from $30,000 to $200,000 depending on what type of arrangements you want made for your body after death. It's important to understand what you're getting into before signing up for this procedure because it may seem like a solution now but could lead to more problems later on down the line. Freezing yourself takes time and planning, and if you decide that you don't want to do it, there are often fees involved. With so many different factors at play when making this decision, it's best to consult with your family members before signing up. Also, keep in mind that while this seems like an exciting prospect right now, being brought back to life might not always be what you expect. Being brought back to life means leaving everything behind and starting over again. Some people might find that idea appealing, but others might find it terrifying. Cryonics is a really personal decision and something that needs to be considered carefully before undertaking such an enormous task. The first cryonic suspension was in 1967. On January 12, 1967, James Bedford became the first person to be cryonically preserved with the intent of future reanimation. Bedford, a psychology professor at the University of California, Los Angeles, was suffering from cancer and chose to have his body frozen in hopes that future medical technology would be able to cure him. His body was cooled to -320 degrees Fahrenheit and has remained in cryonic storage ever since. As of 2019, there are an estimated 250 people who have been cryonically preserved. There is some debate as to whether or not cryonics is actually effective because it is still impossible for scientists to predict how many decades or centuries will pass before humans are able to revive those currently in preservation. While it may seem like a last-ditch effort, many believe it's worth taking the chance if there's even a small chance they could be revived. One of the main criticisms against cryonics is its high cost, which can range anywhere from $28,000 to $200,000 depending on where you go. It costs so much because preserving just one individual can take up to 2 weeks and requires constant monitoring and upkeep by trained professionals. How long can a person live like this? Theoretically, a person could be frozen after death and reanimated at some point in the future. However, it is unknown how long a person could live in this state. The longest a person has been cryogenically frozen is 5 years. Cryonics is not yet an exact science, and there are many risks associated with the process. There are also different types of cryonics to consider, whole body or head only. What if you're not dead when you're cryogenically frozen? It would take time for your brain to heal before they can even try to put you back together again. When someone dies, their neurons begin breaking down immediately, which means any memories that were stored in those cells will never come back. When considering the possibility of a future cure for whatever disease killed them in the first place, there is still no guarantee that they will wake up healthy as ever and able to carry on like nothing happened. If a disease was affecting parts of their brain when they died, then those parts may have died too and might not come back again once they are reanimated. Furthermore, the restoration process takes years and isn't always successful. So what does all this mean? Cryonics should not be seen as something worth doing lightly. Furthermore, people should think twice about whether or not they want to donate their bodies so scientists can experiment on them when they die. Research shows that most people want to stay buried in the ground or cremated when they die. The concept of freezing humans after death and reanimating them at some point in the future is both intriguing and terrifying, but we're just not sure how well it's going to work out yet. But what if they change their mind about being revived? If you're considering cryogenics, you might be wondering what would happen if you were frozen after death and then revived at some point in the future. Would you still be the same person? And what if you change your mind about being revived? In theory, scientists say they could thaw you out of cryogenic suspension and give you a different body or restore your original body with a computer brain implant that mimics the one you had before, but this has never been attempted. What's more is that experts believe that it may not even matter how long it takes to revive someone from cryogenic suspension because as long as their memories are intact, they will continue to exist. Still, I think that if I froze myself for 50 years, I'd want my current body back. But don't forget, this process can only work on your head, so that means if something happened to your limbs, you're screwed. Now let's talk money. Cryonic preservation costs an average of $200,000, but they guarantee they'll keep you preserved no matter what. Plus there's always the chance that society ends up being much better than we can imagine, which means we'll all have unlimited resources, so everyone will be able to afford to do it when they die. But hey, what happens if you freeze yourself but die first? In order to be revived, people who sign up for cryonics must also set aside funds or property worth 2 times the cost of preservation so that it can pay for medical treatment and rehabilitation services. Kinda like life insurance. What happens if things go wrong during cryonic suspension process? There are a number of risks associated with cryonic suspension, which is why it's important to be sure you understand all of the potential outcomes before making the decision to undergo the procedure. One of the most significant risks is that something could go wrong during the freezing process, resulting in brain damage or even death. Additionally, there is always the possibility that cryonic suspension will not be successful in preserving your body and you will not be able to be revived in the future. Some people have also argued that memories may be lost if a person is frozen and then revived, but this has never been proven. If you're worried about your memory being affected by being frozen, one option would be to sign up for more than one session, 2 sessions back to back. In case anything goes wrong during the first round of cryonic suspension, your backup would still remain preserved. Additionally, many people choose to designate someone they trust as their cryonic backup designee who will make decisions on their behalf if they become incapacitated or otherwise unable to communicate their wishes. Should we do it even if there's a chance we might fail? Humans have been fascinated by the idea of cryogenics for centuries, the idea of being frozen after death and then reanimated at some future date. And while the science has come a long way, there are still many unknowns. So should we do it even if there's a chance we might fail? As with all new medical advances, we need to weigh the pros and cons carefully. However, as someone who is currently alive on this planet, that would be me, I'm not sure what I would want to happen with my body when I die. It's possible that I could live well into the next century or more, so why put myself through years of cold storage only to wake up decades later? It's also possible that we may find a cure for whatever killed me during my lifetime, so why risk dying again just because it may take longer than average to find a cure if they didn't know where I was buried or stored? Furthermore, what if technology progresses faster than anticipated and cures are found sooner? In this case, my friends and family will already have had enough time to say their goodbyes. But hey, maybe I'll get lucky enough to be revived before society collapses. Anyway, how much of your brain function do you want to lose while you're dead? I guess we don't know yet. But I can see that freezing our brains instead of our whole bodies could help make decisions easier for everyone. To start, you could freeze your frontal lobe temporarily. If and when the time comes that somebody finds a cure for your disease, it would allow them to extract the DNA from the cells in that part of your brain and use it to create an embryo that matches yours exactly. Your consciousness would then be downloaded onto an artificial body grown from stem cells. Of course, these steps are speculative but give us hope for the future.